My name is Jane Williamson. I'm the director here at Rokeby Museum in Ferrisburgh, Vermont. I grew up in the Midwest in Minnesota, moved to Vermont about 30 years ago. Yeah, you know, it's really interesting to me that history is so under-taught today in schools. I know it's very true in Vermont. I don't obviously have direct experience elsewhere, but you read about the loss of history education largely because of the emphasis on math and reading for the crazy tests that students have to pass. But when I was growing up, history was a popular subject. It was my favorite subject, and I wasn't the only one for whom history was a favorite subject. So I always loved history. Minnesota actually is a very history-conscious state. If you go to the Minnesota History Center, which is in St. Paul, the Minnesota Historical Society, it's huge. It looks like a corporate headquarters. It's amazing. And then I was a history major in college. It's been my subject forever. And I thought very hard about going on for a PhD after college, but I was too tired. I didn't do it. I do have a master's in historic preservation from the University of Vermont. I got involved in African American history here at Rokeby. When I was in college, it was a really good time to study history. It was in the late 60s, early 70s when the whole social history field really came into flower. And it was so exciting. All this new information was coming out about African Americans and women and immigration and labor. And, you know, it was definitely not the white male leaders, rich guy history. It was history from the bottom up. When I moved to Vermont, I was working in publishing. I was an editor for many years. But I came on a tour here at Rokeby. And at the end of the tour, I said, "Do you need a volunteer?" And they said yes. That was in 1989, and I've been here ever since. So I got very interested in the history that's here. The abolitionist history, I actually was interested in abolitionist history in college. And very often people on house tours, we tour people through this house at Rokeby, will ask about African American Vermonters and were there a lot of black Vermonters and where did they live and what did they do? And we had a little bit of information. A few people had done some research. I kept thinking, somebody's going to do this. This is such an obvious thing. It's a big subject. It's very little done. There's a lot of opportunity here. It's going to happen. And it didn't happen, and it didn't happen. And I kept wanting the answers to these questions so I could give them to my visitors. And so finally, I just did it myself. I just started doing research. I started close to Rokeby with Addison County and Charlotte, which is right the next town. And Heinsberg has already been well researched. There's a Vermont researcher named Elise Guyette who's actually written a book about the black families of Heinsberg.